via Zoom, you can raise your hand in the lower section of your screen. And or if you're calling in, you can do *9 and you will be recognized when it's your turn to speak. First on our agenda is the open forum. This is an opportunity for any citizen to briefly address the Planning Commission on any matter that does not appear on this agenda. Upon being recognized by the chair, please state your name and limit your oral statements to no more than 3 minutes. Matters that appear to warrant a more lengthy presentation or commission consideration will be agendized for further discussion at a later meeting. Is there anyone in the audience?
I am not, say that, we do have on Zoom. We do have one member on Zoom,
Okay,
but also Chair Carapiet, we should probably do roll call.
yeah, I just thought of that. I was going to say we should do roll call.
first.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do the roll. Commissioner Lasky? Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Stower?
Here.
Commissioner Hart? Chair Carapiet?
Here.
Absent tonight is Commissioner Burke and Commissioner Slaymaker, and staff present tonight is myself, Irene Borba, Director of Planning and Building, Sammy Malakaman, our Associate Planner, and Nancy Miller, our Permit Technician, and Letitia Miguel is helping us out tonight. She's our City Clerk. For the open forum, then we have is it Dr. Rothman? So
I'm looking over at the attendees. I see 5 attendees with 1 raised hand. I'm going to go over and unmute Mr. Rothman.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I just want to bring to your attention that at the city council meeting, the microphone at the podium for the people who are in attendance, that microphone was not broadcasting on Zoom. And what they had to do was to take from the staff table, to take the portable microphone, and then in order for someone standing at the public's podium to be heard, they had to take the portable microphone and actually speak into the portable microphone while standing at the podium, because the microphone at the podium is not connected to Zoom, or it was not connected at the first meeting which it was tried, which was the city council. So I don't know the circumstances this evening, but it would be good if that problem could be averted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe that we are working on it and making sure that everyone can be heard very clearly this evening. Is there anyone else who wants? Commissioner Storr?
Yes, thank you, Chair Capriot. Just to avoid bringing the minutes out of consent. I noticed that the minutes of our meetings are getting very, very condensed, and I think it would be really good for all future minutes if we would add a line, say subject A or something, somewhere where it should be appropriate, that the minutes are intended to be a summary of the meeting, and that they can find the full details recorded on the website and explain where it is. I think that would be a good addition since they are so condensed these days. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item C, reports. Are there any staff reports?
I have an announcement to make. Just for the public and for the commissioners, Tuesday night is the council meeting. It's a special meeting of the city council. They will be looking again at the housing and safety element for consideration. The meeting will be at 6:30. It will be a hybrid meeting, so you could attend via Zoom or attend here in person. So I wanted to let everyone know about that.
Thank you. Is there any planning commissioners that have a committee report? Seeing none, moving on to the consent calendar. Excuse me, the consent calendar consists of items that the Planning Commission considers to be non-controversial. Unless any item is specifically removed by any member of the Planning Commission, staff, or audience, the consent calendar will be adopted by one motion. Items removed will be considered in the sequence as they appear below. If any member of the audience wishes to have an item removed, follow the remote meeting procedures of raising your hand or *9 If you do not have access to the Zoom meeting platform, please email the Director of Planning and Building, Irene Borba, and indicate that you would like to remove a consent calendar item and identify the item. Her email is iborba, iborba@cityofbelvedere.org. After removing the item, the Planning Commission will call for comments at the appropriate time. There's one item on our consent calendar. It's the draft minutes of the December 14, 2022 special meeting of the Planning Commission. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to remove any item from the consent calendar? Any commissioners? Can I have a motion, please?
I was absent just to
Okay.
the last meeting.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes of the December 14th meeting. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public hearings. Item number 2, 53 Alcatraz Avenue. Can we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Carapiet and members of the Planning Commission. For your consideration this evening is an application for demolition permit, design review, and variance at 53 Alcatraz Avenue, which involves a residential addition, rear deck expansion, and other site improvements. The residence is centrally located on a 4,600 square foot parcel in the R1C zoning district. The site is adjacent to single-family homes, and Corinthian Lane, a city lane, abuts the site to the south. The existing site contains a 704 square foot residence and 546 square foot detached carport. The project would convert the carport into a garage and add 571 square feet to the main residence, connecting both structures. The project would expand the existing rear yard deck from 313 square feet to 450 square feet. A privacy fence would be added on the northern side of the property, and a new gate and entry and arbor would be added at the entry. Above the main level of the house, the project would add a 555 square foot roof terrace, 280 square foot of which would be covered by a trellis. The proposed east elevation shows the new entry and two-car garage facing Alcatraz Avenue. Exterior walls would include stucco, stone veneer, horizontal composite wood, and stucco siding. The west elevation shows the rear of the home from Bellevue Avenue. In total, 16 exterior windows and 6 exterior doors are proposed. Here at the lower section is a proposed ADU, which accessory dwelling unit, which would be ministerially approved. The ADU is mentioned here to demonstrate its relationship with the proposed remodel. This is the south elevation looking from Corinthian Lane. The garage roof would be raised approximately 1.5 feet. The roof of the home would be raised 4 feet, and the residence at its highest point, which is the roof trellis, would be 26 feet and 4 inches from existing grade. There's an existing photo and rendering from the front of the house looking along Alcatraz Avenue. And again, a comparison of existing and proposed looking from the rear at Bellevue Avenue. The project would plant creeping fig at the front and left side of the house, as well as English lavender. And silver sheen will be planted at the front. The project would remove 2 oak trees at the center of the lot, one being visually significant, 21 inches in diameter. 2 trees would also be removed and replaced, and they would be replaced along the rear property line. The city arborist did survey the visually significant oak tree and found it to be in good health. The project proposes 5 ceiling mounted downlights at the exterior soffits And 3 ceiling mounted downlights would be placed at the deck as well. 21 wall mounted downlights would be placed at the exterior stairs and roof terrace. And wall mounted downlights would be placed at the entry, garage, and also one at the rear. Commissioners, are you still able to see my? No.
For those of you who are listening remotely and aren't seeing what's happening here, we've lost an internet connection and we're getting rebooted into the Zoom system. We'll be back shortly.
requires structure conforms to current zoning. Here, the existing deck is within the rear yard setback and it meets.
Does anyone have questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Sammy. Can we hear from the applicant, please?
Existing structure. Also, I want to speak first to the condition of these structures. The existing house is structured in 1965 with no. The existing house has a meter 650 square feet interior space. And since its construction, the structure is not built into law. Modest, updated home that will have sufficient room for. So, 571 square foot expansion of existing home. We could add a master bedroom includes a 287-foot slip. Describing staff report, 96 feet of which will expand further into the rear setback. So we're asking for the form the separate functional separation between the west portion of the proposed deck. Provide a modest deck area from a plan. 4,500 square feet into an enclosed car garage. Roof deck to accommodate combined data. Project includes a 37%. From not only plan, but also seeking public. Update, which will be a complement to the open lab. Start the design process. The architectural composition was studied to provide visual interest on traffic and all public spaces. Another important consideration, ability of scale for this project. Proposes a modest increase in the roof height of the garage and the north side of the house. Roof height incrementally from north to south in the slide, which allows the property on Alcatraz to maintain the exposure. The icon purple within the especially these trees facing the front. There are unfortunate trees on the property. These are identified with the green. And we are proposing all the possible this project would present the best balance of the park's interests, the financial and law. Coming to look at it, which to accommodate location for fashion closure. Russell privacy from the properties. One way to address this would be also comments look at reducing the number of light pitch. Which I think now
Thank you. Does any commissioner have questions for the applicant? Nana? Nana, put your microphone on.
If you would go as a visitor or a resident of 51, you would be stepping up from street level, which would put you pretty much above the wooden fence that's drawn in as a privacy screen. And I think you would look into whatever the spa thing is. I don't know if it's an enclosed or if it's a bathtub with jets or what you have, but I think we need to find out what kind of spa equipment. And then I must say, I applaud your humor a little bit here. I don't know if I should say this, but on bullet point 19, it says that if the project involves a variance, conditional use or rezoning application, state this and indicate clearly why the application is required. And you have written in that variance for the extension of the deck in the setback is required or requested because it is necessary to avoid loss of property value. And I don't think we have ever heard that a future thing you're coming to ask for is necessary to avoid loss of value. And I thought it was kind of funny to see it. Anyway, those are my two questions right now.
Thank you. The question of spa is a good one. That's a custom solution, two-person spa. The noise levels and specs on that are sign up for privacy. It's also a good one. I have studied the perspectives right next to that street level. We can demonstrate that we've achieved privacy there. We may need to plantings.
Okay.
And then,
I know, I know. I just have never seen it.
okay,
So.
well,
No.
Thank you. Anyone else? Larry?
yeah, on this slide, it's hard to see, but there's on that bridge where there's the two red X's, is that removing lights? Is that what the X's mean? Okay. And could you go back to the slide that had the oak trees? I was under the understanding you were taking two of those big oak trees out there, what's showing in the red dot. Is this a change from what the plans we have? No, apologize. Yeah, yeah, and that's what I'm asking. I'm
you
just
are.
trying to understand what. Yeah, so this may be confusing. We are moving two trees. We are moving two trees. Only one of them is considered significant. That was what this slide was demonstrating. So I've identified all of the significant. All of the significant. The other tree next also being moved. Oh, okay. I misunderstood it when we were out there talking. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
So I'm just out of curiosity, you've got a bathroom right to the left of the entryway. You've got a really big window there. Is the idea that that's a privacy glass or a frosted glass or? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No other questions from the commission? I'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment on this agenda item?
Chair, Commissioners, looking over at the attendees with 8 attendees, I do see 2 raised hands. We'll go over and unmute Tony Sutherland.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I could hear nothing that was said by Matt Peterson or Sammy. That's why I raised my hand. I was trying to be able to hear you.
So it might be that microphone.
Sammy started out there, so I don't know if it was.
So you
just
couldn't
my
hear
mic.
me even in the beginning before we had the internet breakup?
I can hear you perfectly.
I know I'm perfect.
I just
you know,
couldn't
this
hear
is a
Matt
new-
Peters. I couldn't hear Matt Peterson. I couldn't hear the people that went to the podium. I couldn't hear them, but that's fine. I'm sure Matt did a great job in answering your questions.
He
Thank
did
you.
do a great job. And this is a new system, so we have some kinks that we're still trying to work out. But we seem to have at least gotten that you can hear city council or commissioners talk. So we'll work on the other microphones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
We're gonna go over and unmute Mr. Rothman.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Now, I don't know what I said that was unclear the first time around. I said that the portable microphone has to be given to the person at the podium. Of course, it only has to be given to them if you want the public to be able to hear. If you don't want the public to be able to hear, then don't give them the microphone to the person who's standing at the podium. So I don't know what happened, but when the picture came back on after the slides, I saw the gentleman stepping away from the podium, and he didn't return the portable microphone to the staff. So I assume he didn't have the portable microphone in the first place. The people are invited to participate on Zoom. And yes, we can hear exactly what you're saying, but the response when the public give input, I don't think it's supposed to be to what you say. I think it's supposed to be to the project. And to the extent that the person who's advocating for the project, his project, is stating why he feels it's a good project or follows the rules or whatever, if we can't hear what he's saying, then how can the members of the public actively participate? So if someone says, well, you could just have the picture and you ought to be satisfied with that. Well, that may be the city's policy. I think it would be a sad policy. And I think it would defeat the purpose that can be achieved by the hybrid meeting. So could someone please say why he wasn't given the portable microphone?
I believe the technician that was here checked that the microphone was working. And so obviously that does not seem to be the case. So that is something that we're going to have to double check again. And again, this is a new system and we're going to have kinks and issues till we learn how to use the new system. And it's kind of like when we started on Zoom, there was a lot of starts and stops and go back to go and everything else. So we're working on it. Did you want to give Mr. Peterson a chance to get a microphone and make a general wrap up?
We can do that, if that's what the,
Can you just do kind of a summary of what we talked about? You know, the questions Nana had and
Before we do that, I just want to add, Dr. Rothman, that the meetings are now in person and open to the public, and you're welcome to come here and You won't encounter any of these technical issues at home.
And I'd like to add, it is not the city policy to exclude the public from hearing what's going on.
All right, we're done. And when Mr. Peterson gets ready to talk, could someone in the audience raise their hand to indicate that you can hear them? We don't see anything, so we're blind on our side. Except for staff.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So I began my presentation by a description of the project and really talking about the process of the design process and how we sought to balance the objectives of my client and her preferences, Tony Sutherland, with the interest in the welfare of the community. And through that process of considering these interests, we believe we're presenting a project that's going to maintain the special character of Belvedere and will also enhance the beauty of the natural and built environment of your wonderful city. I did speak to some of the conditions of the existing structure in that it was built in 1955. It's had little to no updates since. The square footage of the existing home is very small. It's at 650 square feet. My client's objectives with this proposed remodel and ADU are to turn the small inadequate structures into a modest home where they can have sufficient room to host family and friends. I think Sammy covered pretty well the scope of the project and in the staff report, but I'll skip to what we think will be a significant improvement to the community. This project will not only be attractive for the client, Tony, but it'll also be an attractive addition as seen from the public. And with this project, we're using natural materials and colors for exterior finishes, as this design seeks to be a simple, elegant update, which will complement the built environment of the city. We also carefully studied the architectural composition of this project throughout the design process, ensuring that from all public streets and thoroughfares, that this would be visually pleasing. Another important consideration for us was to maintain the suitability of scale, in that this project proposes a modest increase to the roof heights of the garage and also the north side of the existing home. The heights of the roofs incrementally step up as you go from north to south, which allows the neighbor at 51 Alcatraz to maintain good sun exposure, but it also screens the high point of the roof, the pergola, in the canopy of the existing trees. We also talked about the challenge of developing on a small lot and trying to balance that with the desire to preserve existing trees for the benefit of the community. And so ultimately we were able to find a solution that saves 3 of 4 significant existing trees on the property. And with that and our attention to the preservation of these existing trees, we think that this project is a just balance of the public and private interests, and will not only enhance the natural environment through the addition of landscaping, but also the built environment. And some of the questions, I suppose, that as I recall, there was a question about a spa and how that might be visible from Alcatraz Avenue. My response was that we can add plantings along that privacy fence to further screen the spa if that is a concern. And in addition to that, there was a question about the noise. The spa is a small 2-person spa. The specs are to be determined, but we'll be looking for a solution that reduces the amount of noise. I don't recall trash enclosures. Yes, yeah, sorry. So the final slides that I spoke to were these are slides that I prepared that are addressing some of the comments that I got from commissioners during our on-site meeting. A few of the comments were requesting additional plantings along Bellevue, which I think we can easily accommodate, and those are shown in green here. Another comment or request was to find a location for a trash enclosure, and I think we can locate a trash enclosure at the northeast corner of the garage, as shown here at the bottom of the page. There are also questions from the commissioners, concerns that the roof deck might create a privacy issue between this property and adjacent properties. So I suggested adding plantings, planters, potted plants at the roof deck to add that level of privacy and soften the facade. There are also concerns of having too many lights at the roof deck area. And I am showing here that there's definitely, too many lights that we have at the roof deck, and we can easily eliminate 6 of them. I believe that recaps what I said.
Yes, thank you very much for clarifying that for the public. Is there anyone in the public now that wants to make a statement before I close the public hearing?
Looking over at the attendee side, 7 attendees with 1 raised hand. We'll go over and unmute Mr. Rothman.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I sort of left a bad taste with my more recent remark. It was just that I had explained that it could all be solved by simply using the portable microphone, and then it wasn't used. So I didn't mean to, I was really just trying to be helpful in describing to you what had happened during the city council meeting. And I know that things are going to get straightened out, and Mr. Zadnik has said it'll get straightened out, but I only was trying to be helpful until it does get straightened out. So again, I'm sorry if I sounded, if I was offensive.
No, you weren't offensive, Mr. Rothman. We appreciate you pointing that out. And, we're all trying to do our best here, and, we can stop on a dime and go back and redo it. We have time to do
I appreciate that you did that. And I look forward, I'm certain it's going to get worked out, because as I've said in other venues, probably the only positive thing that came out of COVID was that the hybrid meetings, well, they were all on Zoom, but it allowed people in our community who are disabled or elderly or can't drive at night. There are a whole lot of older people, and the hybrid Zoom meeting allows those residents to be full participants in the governing process. And of course, planning is part of the governing process. So I'm sure things are going to work out fine. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for all your thoughts. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Vice Chair Johnson, would you like to start us off?
Yes, thank you. So I think this is overall a very attractive design. I think it makes very good and clever use of space on such a small and steep lot. I also think the materials and finishes are attractive and elegant. And while it's very modern, it's not out of place in Belvedere. It's such a sort of vertical angular design. I really appreciate that the entrance is at an angle and it's a little bit offset. I think that's a really nice detail. So the one design detail that I struggle with is the covered roof deck over the garage. So I really understand wanting to capture more outdoor space, but it's so conspicuous. And it feels to me inconsistent with what we're looking for in design review. Yeah, it's a viewing deck is what it feels like to me. And it's just, we're always very conscious of trying to protect views and privacy for, not just for the homeowners, but for people around in the vicinity as well. So given the other two large decks there, this also feels extraneous to me. I would love to hear other thoughts about that. But so in terms of the variance for the back deck, I don't have an issue with the expanded deck in this backyard. I think especially because it's sitting on top of the ADU. But I do think more discussion is needed as I wonder if it would constitute a special privilege. So again, a question for the commission worth discussing further. You had mentioned this when you spoke, and it sounds like you'll be addressing it, but I did feel that the lighting on the deck could be cut back significantly. And I would really focus that only on areas where it's really essential, like going up and down stairs. There's so much glass on the back side of the home that I think between the lights on the deck and then all of the lights from the interior of the home, it's just going to be very, very bright. And then you also addressed this a little bit too, but it's such an angular kind of sharp design that I really think it would benefit more from a robust landscaping plan. I think it will really help soften and screen the home, especially in the backyard outside the ADU. And you did mention you'll be planting some things there, but I think you want to look for things that have some verticality too, some differing heights. And then I would also say along the public lane there, Corinthian Lane, just making sure, especially if you have people coming in and out of that ADU, and people use the lanes, they go up and down those. So I would want, if it were me, I would want some more planting there to make sure that it's sufficiently screened. I think the lavender and climbing vines that you've selected are a really lovely touch. I also really love that mature oak tree that's behind the garage. And it takes a lifetime to grow a tree like that, sometimes 2 lifetimes. And I would hate to see it go because it is really so stunning and it's such a nice feature of that property. And I think it does so much too to really kind of shield and soften the design. I think that given this plan and what I've seen, that you could come up with something that would allow that oak tree to remain. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think that could be reworked to allow that to remain. But like I said, I think overall it's a very well done design, very elegant, and I think the finishes are great. You had mentioned that you would bring some material samples here, and I would be interested in seeing some of those if you have them. But overall, I think it's a very successful design. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lasky, please.
I too think that this is such a transformation of this small,
Can you pull it closer?
closer?
Yeah,
It is on.
real close,
I mean, this close.
like kiss it.
All right. Is this good? Can you hear now? Is that good? During the city council meeting, this is the mic that wasn't working, that I couldn't hear. Feels like it. Okay. Good. Is that good? Can you, that's better.
perfect.
You're right.
Yeah.
Mhm. So this really is such a transformation of a small cottage to a very contemporary design. I think it's really creative what you've done with the space, and it's very good looking. I like the staggered levels of what you've done, which add interest, and I think the materials, I haven't really looked at them, I will, but from the plans, the materials and colors really blend in with the terrain. And I like the combination of materials to the stucco and the wood and the stone. I think you've really broken that up well. But this is a very small lot. And I think it would be more in keeping with the area with to adapting a couple of things. And I actually agree with our other commissioner that I think you have two terraces, and I think it would be very easy to get rid of one of them. I think it really does impede on the privacy of the southern property. And it also makes the home kind of stick out and stand out, which is not something we really like to do. So I think you could easily get rid of that one terrace that's over I think it's over the bedroom, correct? And I also, of course, as most of you know, have a very fond heart for trees, specifically oak trees. And it's wonderful that the two big are saved, but I also, knowing that you're such a creative architect, you may be able to do something by saving this other oak tree. And as I mentioned, if you move that whole bedroom section forward, I think you would be able to do that. So it's just something I would like you to be able to save that tree also. And I think it's possible to do that. And the trees, I think you should add some extra planting along the ADU. I think that looks great, and I agree with different heights of the planting that you can do, and to replant some more trees on the other two that you're taking out. But overall, I think you've done a fantastic job with the design. I just, would encourage you to keep that large mature tree, because that's probably 70 to 90 years old, and it's very hard to replace something like that. It really creates ambience up there for that property. So I can, and I can make the finding for the variance for the deck. I think you really don't notice it, and it really fits in, and it is over the ADU. So I can make the findings for most of the motions, except I would like the design to be reworked in those particular areas that I mentioned.
Thank you. Commissioner Storr, please.
Yeah, thank you. First, I'd like to thank Sammy and Matt for all your work and answering all my questions, and I appreciate that. I read all the materials and I visited a site. I was really kind of focusing on privacy issues, lighting, and the trees that were going to be removed. Matt and I discussed some of the options his clients took a look at, and we discussed the degree of demolition of the garage. I was thinking that it looked like it was a demolition if you're raising it, but I understand a little better why we're considering it not a demolition. We talked about the lighting on the roof, and one of the things listening to my other commissioners is I had written down here, I have a thought for you, and I think I may have discussed it with you. Since we don't like the roof decks, if we were to put the deck where you're planning the master bedroom, you could save those two oak trees, and we could put the master bedroom on top of the house. So it becomes a 3-story home. So I don't know how that would fit in with everybody's views, but it would change. It would allow you to keep the trees. It would get rid of the ladders outside. We talked about maybe, putting in a small elevator to get all 3 floors. You tie in the ADU to the rest of the house. So those are some thoughts maybe to think about to address some of the questions the others had. I had also asked you about, had you considered moving those stairs that go up to the roof deck around to the street side, the upper street side. I forget all the names of the streets, but Alcatraz. So it's not in the neighbor's view at your next door neighbor. And you said you hadn't looked at that, but if we do get rid of the roof deck, that becomes a non-issue. So I too, I like the colors and the materials. I like the articulation that you've done on this design. I think it's all very, attractive for a contemporary design. I, however, don't see a contemporary design fitting in that part of the neighborhood. If you look around, those 3 houses there don't look like they fit. In that respect, they do stand out because they don't look like they fit. So I don't know if you look at maybe putting slope roofs on, if you could make it fit a little better with the rest of the neighborhood. Take a look at the materials there, make some small changes that might be more attractive, I think, and fit better. Back to swapping where the master bedroom is and the roof deck. I also think that'd be a better place for a deck because the house and the garage will block wind. It'll be a lot more usable space. It's going to be a windy space up on top of the roof. So something to consider. I don't know if your client lives in this area, knows the area well or not. That can be a windy spot there. And lastly, I know it's not required if it's not a demolition, but I would prefer to see the garage moved. Maybe not all the way out of the setback, but maybe enough that you could actually put some plantings along there, along the side of the walkway there, the public right of way. So I agreed with staff findings on the resolution for no historical resource and the demolition. I agree with staff findings there. I struggle with the design review because of the contemporary design not fitting the area. So I made suggestions. I also agree with the others about the trees. I think they can be saved if you make those changes. And as far as the variance goes, I guess if we did away with the roof deck, I would find favorably for the variance. I do think one of the members here has raised a very good question about special privilege. And I'd have to think a little bit more about that. I'm not sure where I land on that. But because one thing you could say, yes, you can put that deck on top of the ADU because it's going to be there, but you could also say, well, the ADU could be put back so that the deck could go on top of the ADU and not go into the setback. So, you'd have to push the ADU further into the hillside to do that. But the ADUs are allowed at 4-foot setback, and we have no say over that. So it's a struggle. I agree with you. That's a hard one. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Hart.
Okay. Um, First, I want to say, I think it's a beautiful design. I did not think about what Commissioner Storr said, that it actually is unusual to have modern buildings up there. They all seem to be a lot of Mediterranean stucco kind of buildings, which is true. I still do think, though, that your choice of materials and the design is really very, very palatable and pretty, and I think fits in with the oak trees. Another thought that the other commissioners brought up, that the master bedroom could be slightly changed in location to save one of the big oak trees. I'm sure, as talented as an architect that you are, that would not be too much of a challenge. And I think that that tree would really add a lot to the whole structure if it was to remain. The variance for the wraparound deck in front of the living and dining and kitchen of the main living area, I think it's not that big of an ask as the ADU is coming out as far as it is, because the ADUs are allowed to only have 4 feet setback. And I think that the expanse of that deck, it is absolutely enough for family gatherings and dining and entertaining. And with that said, I am totally opposed to the roof decks, whether they are above the master bedroom or the living and dining. I think they are inappropriate. We have not, or we do not approve them, as far as I know, taking the whole top of a flat roofed home and allowing roof decks. I know everybody wants to have maximum views of the San Francisco and the Bay and so on, but I think that the location and the situation of this house is Belvedere Island and the Belvedere Cove, and some pluses are seeing part of San Francisco. So I can make all the findings, the variance for the deck above the ADU and on the side. But I cannot make the design review findings approving the roof decks. And then the privacy about the spa and so on, we already discussed, and the lights have been discussed. So with that, unfortunately, I cannot approve this project as proposed.
Thank you. So, thank you, Sammy, for a great report and presentation, and to Mr. Peterson for his presentation and patience with us this evening. I visited the site. I read the report, and I am in concurrence with the rest of the commission that, without belaboring the subject, that I would be able to make the motion for no historic resource for the demolition, and also for granting the variance for the wraparound deck. I could not also make the design review primarily due to the roof deck. I think that when I drive around Corinthian Island, I think it's a little eclectic neighborhood. It has older properties that are Mediterranean. It has 70s properties, 50s properties. So it's kind of an eclectic little neighborhood. And I think that the design is beautiful. The finishes are lovely. I think it would fit in to the neighborhood. But the roof deck, I think, is a privacy issue. It's a mass and bulk issue for me. And I would not be able to make the design review findings for the project at this time. So did you want to consider continuing the project?
Yeah, of course, I have to consult with my client and see what her intentions are based on your findings. And I would hope that we continue the project. I think we can demonstrate to the commission that there's a solution for this project that's not too far away from where we are. And I don't know if I should go on.
So, so we need to make a decision tonight whether we're going to vote on the project or continue it. So did you want to take a moment and reach out to your
Yeah, I
client?
should.
I'm sorry? That microphone doesn't work.
Just call it.
Hi, can you hear me?
What does he do, call his client?
She's calling, he's calling. I think.
So what happens is that if we take a vote and it's turned down, you go back to go. You pay new fees, you go back to go. If we continue it, you go and you tweak your project and you come back when you're ready.
Understand now what you're asking me. I want a continuance.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to continue this project to a future meeting?
I so move.
Second,
Do we need roll call?
Commissioner Lasky,
yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Stower,
Yes.
Commissioner Hart,
Yes.
and Chair Carapiet.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to our next agenda item. Item number E. Oh, I'm sorry. Item number 3, the amending the Belvedere Municipal Zoning Code. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yeah, I'm going to be low tech tonight rather than show a bunch of words on the screen. Since we're having issues, I'm just going to kind of go through it. So it was in October of 2021 that the council adopted an urgency ordinance for accessory dwelling units to comply with the state laws. Additionally, at the same time, the council introduced and conducted a first reading for a formal accessory dwelling unit ordinance as well. An ADU, also known as an in-law unit, is a small living unit that is either attached to a main residence or in a separate structure. It also has exterior access, a kitchen, and a bathroom. A junior accessory dwelling unit, or JDU, is smaller, located within a primary residence, contains minimal kitchen improvements, and need not include a separate bathroom. Because Belvedere is a built-out community and has limited opportunities for additional housing, ADUs and JDUs provide important opportunities for the city to meet its regional housing needs allocation requirements, also known as RHNA. Accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units also count towards the satisfaction of our RHNA numbers. An ADU or junior ADU will be credited again towards the city's RHNA based on a reasonable demonstration, a level of affordability set forth in our housing element. ADUs, just so you know, are not automatically counted as affordable units. In response to California's housing shortage, the state of California adopted wide-ranging legislation in 2017 and 2018. Again, broadly requiring municipalities to allow ADUs and restricting local control. Additionally, California legislation then in January 2021 and 20 further restricted local control over ADUs and JDUs. More recently, again, California legislation, which became effective January 1st of this year, further restricted local flexibility over ADUs and JDUs. All applications for an ADU or JDU that comply with state requirements in a local municipal code shall be granted or denied only upon a staff level ministerial review for compliance with those requirements. Public hearings and design review are specifically prohibited by the state law for ministerial approvals. Again, as I noted on January 1st of this year, Assembly Bill AB 2221 and Senate Bill 897 became effective. Both of these laws require further changes to the city's ordinance regarding ADUs and junior ADUs in order to be consistent with the state laws. Both bills were intended to clarify existing rules and facilitate approvals of ADUs and JDUs. The new bill requires that all cities change their ADU height limits to at least 16 feet, again, making it more feasible to construct two-story ADUs. The bill also requires the cities to document reasons why an application might be rejected or denied. The bill further addresses front setback requirements and per their new requirements. If an ADU is under 800 square feet, front setback requirements cannot be applied. The bill also allows developers to propose and build new ADUs in new multifamily housing concurrently. Under the previous laws, a developer could only add an ADU to a pre-existing multifamily building, but not as part of a proposed multifamily project. For SB 897, it addresses unpermitted work on ADUs. Some ADUs may include unpermitted work on a property such as non-conforming zoning conditions, building code violations, or unpermitted structures, which may, again, require substantial time and money to bring those ADUs into full legal compliance. Under the new state law of SB 897, it now provides that such ADUs may be permitted unless the non-compliant work is deemed to be a safety or a health concern. There's also a requirement under the new state laws that ADUs might trigger what they call a group R occupancy, which is a requirement under building and fire codes. Under this prior law, such occupancy changes could trigger the need to install fire sprinklers. Under SB 897, however, it eliminates this potential fire sprinkler requirement. The law also clarifies some information regarding JDU laws. Under existing law, an attached JDU does not need to include a bathroom in the unit. Again, under the new law, it clarifies that a JDU does not need to include the bathroom, but it needs to have accessibility to the bathroom, possibly through the interior entry of the home. It also talks about, with the new law, that in certain circumstances where a property owner wishes to replace a detached garage with an ADU, cities must also process the demolition permit application for the detached garage as part of the application for the ADU. Again, that then brings the demolition requirements in the same time limits such as the demolition permits. The changes before you tonight reflect the minimum requirements per the state law. The changes were provided to you underlined and in strike-throughs in the ordinance to clearly show the modifications. Staff is recommending that the commission recommend to the council approval of the proposed ordinances. And again, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for staff?
I have a couple
Marcia?
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. On AB 2221, so the height limits are to 16 feet, and I know some of the other places they allow maybe 2 more feet. So it's not really specific. Is that from the ground level?
The ordinance or the state law did not clarify. My understanding is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we would go with how we measure height with the underlying zoning district.
I believe that's correct, because again, the state law leaves us somewhat in the dark on their intentions, so we would stay with our normal interpretation. of measurement.
So, I mean, someone couldn't say I'm building a 16-foot over a garage.
Well, in some circumstances, they might be able to. Again, depending on what the circumstances are. And again, for instance, up on the hill, we would measure from existing grade. But in the lagoon, possibly, if it's a substantial improvement, we're measuring from the BFE +1. So again, we would just go with the underlying zoning district on how we would measure height.
So we don't need to make this more specific.
I originally thought we did, but I think it's clear enough for us that we measure with the underlying zoning district.
Okay. And I had another question on building new ADUs in multifamily housing. There's not a lot of difference between an ADU and a studio or a one-bedroom. So are they limited to how many ADUs they can put in the multi-family housing?
I don't believe so.
So could they make the whole building ADUs?
No.
So and one of the things said 25%.
Yeah.
In one, 25% could be ADUs, but so I want to know about that.
Well, I think one other point to make is that typically an accessory dwelling unit is associated with a primary dwelling or in multifamily dwelling. So to me, you would need one multifamily unit and then an ADU. As to the percentage, I can't speak to the percentage.
Are we talking about the housing
Right.
element?
Yeah, I'm talking about how many ADUs can go in a multifamily housing?
I believe that the most you would be entitled to is one ADU and one JADU. Is that?
That's what I would think.
Yes.
In a
so-
multi-housing unit, so let's
So
say.
you have the primary structure,
Right,
and they don't, the law does not flesh out how it would work.
yeah,
If you're thinking of an attached ADU to a multifamily structure, the concept becomes a little meaningless, I agree. But there has to be a primary structure that you're constructing these ADUs on. Presumably, if you have a multifamily building and you're using the ADU to build something that is smaller and has less setbacks than you could otherwise construct.
so if there's a multifamily building, let's say that has 8 apartments, they would be allowed to do how many ADUs
They can get one ADU and one JADU.
for each apartment?
No, for the structure, for
For
the
whole
primary structure, yes.
Okay, because I don't think that's very clear.
It's not very clear, but that's
Okay.
the state law for you.
Okay, yes, it is. And on 897, and I think it covers it in some of this of what we already have, but it said that it will not trigger installing fire sprinklers in a house if they don't have it. But what about the cost for sewer hookups and electrical and plumbing? The sewer hookup is quite expensive here. So does that mean they wouldn't have to do that either? It's not very clear.
You're right, it's not clear, but I do recall that in the reading about the law, though, it talks about the permitting agencies. It's
Yes.
applicable to the permitting agencies,
Yes.
so,
It says local agencies, they changed, yes.
yeah. But I don't know about the sewer district.
I don't know if it's binding on the sewer district. I don't, if the site is one that requires a sewer hookup, though, it doesn't already have one, I think we could not permit it under health and safety rules unless they have the ability to supply the necessary hygienic sanitation facilities. But again, the law is conspicuously silent on this and several other topics of interest.
I think that's all I had. Okay, I'm,
Gwen, on sub G, on general requirements for accessory, G says something about the adequate services. I think that answers.
so where are you?
What page?
No, they're not
It's
paged.
under 1979-040,
Oh,
general requirements, go to G, like in George.
Mhm.
It says adequate services. Proof of the proposed method of water supply and sewage disposal must be provided and confirmed by letters of service availability from the appropriate utility services provider for the lot. The property must have existing or future legal access.
And then in H, it says they can't collect
Impact fee.
fees for water, sewer, power, unless it was done with a new house. So if it's existing, I don't think they can collect a sewer fee, a new sewer fee, like a new sewer hookup. They probably would just hook up into the regular sewer line. You know, tap into the existing sewer line where
They built an
where
ADU,
it goes out.
because I know sometimes now they do that.
I'm just, what Marcia's talking about, and there's something sticking in my head and I can't find it, and I thought I read it here, but maybe it was in the housing element that a multifamily can't have more than 25% of an ADU or more than 2 or something like that. Is
I
that
read
like
that
in my
too.
brain? Yeah, I thought I read it in here and now I can't find it.
I'm just trying to find it because I wrote it down also. 25 years ago. It's in 2221, I think. I'm trying to find it. I read that too.
Yeah, there was something.
I wrote it down.
Yeah, no more than 2. So your answer was right. It could be 2 ADUs or an ADU and a JAU, but no more than 2. You were correct. Just took forever to find that page.
Or 25% of the existing multifamily.
Building, then, and it was, then they could put in 25% of 10, 2.5 or 3. There's a lot of difference between existing and new. Okay, anything else? Marcia?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I sent quite a few questions to Irene about this, and I was looking at the entire document, not just what was edited. And I was told that we can only talk about what's edited tonight. But I do think that's a problem because when we approved this, we approved the original document, we said we weren't really totally happy with it, and we were going to revisit it, and it was living. So I kind of think that we do have the right to talk about other sections in here. Maybe we can't take any motions on them tonight, but I think there's some things that do need some work in this before it goes to the city council for approval. Like, for instance, multifamily dwelling, the definition here, it says it means a structure with 2 or more attached dwellings on a single lot. Multiple detached single unit dwellings on the same lot are not considered multifamily dwellings. Well, to me, that seems to include a single family home with an ADU in it. Suddenly it's not detached, it's an attached ADU, but now all of a sudden it's a multifamily unit.
Commissioner Storm, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt you. And I read your comments and questions myself, and I agree that there's a lot of clarification that's warranted here. I don't disagree with your request for clarification. However, the Brown Act is the source of the restriction. It's not simply that staff doesn't want to talk about it right now. It's that people in the community have a right to know that we're revisiting these issues, and our agenda doesn't indicate that. So if I may suggest, if the commission so wishes, it could ask the staff to come back with some proposals to address some of these issues, but we can't discuss it tonight.
Well, the thing is that none of the other commissioners are aware of the issues I raised. And so how do we do this? What's the procedure? How do we get there?
Well, one option would be to form an ad hoc subcommittee to discuss potential improvements to the ADU ordinance.
How do we agendize this for a meeting with the committee?
Well,
So
you could ask staff to agendize for the next meeting such a subcommittee. Typically, that would take 2 commissioners. I don't know what the local rule here is on that, but if 2 commissioners wanted to place it on the agenda, normally it would be placed on the agenda.
So isn't it true that we have a new procedure for ad hoc committees too, that I need to speak to the mayor before I create an ad hoc committee?
Apparently, yes, it is.
So I think under advice of council, I think we should have me discuss with the mayor how the mayor wishes to proceed on this subject. And if he wants a subcommittee, or if he just wants it to be agendized for further discussion. I think. Sure. Yes, you may.
So, yeah, sorry. So a couple of questions. What's in here is the bare minimum required by law. So even if we don't adopt this resolution, any ADU that comes before us will default to the state law. So
That's correct.
yeah, so I guess, and also, is there a penalty for not adopting this resolution right now? And do we have any ability later, if we adopt it now, to say, okay, we're going to go back and tweak some of the language?
You can tweak the language always as an agendized item, provided that the tweaks don't conflict with state law. My concern would be if you don't adopt this, the new laws came into effect on January 1st, and currently the ordinance is non-compliant. One could argue that the ordinance doesn't apply at all if it's non-compliant, and therefore we would have nothing but state law to apply to ADU applications.
And
We're better off.
what would be the issue there if we're parroting the state law?
Well, honestly, I have not gone through and done a line-by-line comparison to see what we have, what additional regulations we've been able to impose in addition to state law. So I really can't answer that question, but it would be typical. The original ADU application was, of course, adopted before I began representing the city. But it would be typical for a city to have additional standards that are consistent with state law, but not necessarily set forth in state law. So we might not be able to apply those additional protections and regulations. I'm sorry to be so vague.
And to the Ann's point, we do have some, for instance, some design standards, I'll call them, within the ordinance. So at that point, if we're non-compliant, those would not be applicable, because again, there are design standards that are in our ADU law. In my opinion, it would be better to recommend approval to the council to adopt the ordinance, and then at the next commission meeting, if you want to have further discussion, just a discussion so you can talk about the issues and concerns, then we could do that at the next meeting.
Okay, well, I agree with staff and council that proper due diligence for the city is to have an ordinance that's adopted, and that we can always go back and tweak. Having nothing, I think, exposes us as we all understand, having things not done on time. So I think that we have enough stuff out there that we should consider this ordinance that brings us into the minimum state requirement for the new laws that have come into effect in January of 2023. And then we can agendize further discussion at a future meeting.
You know, I guess I hear you, but what I'm also hearing is it becomes very difficult to tweak because of the Brown Act and the process we have to go through. It's not such an
Well,
easy thing to just tweak. It's a fairly extensive process to even change one word.
Well,
It is frustrating. The Brown Act requires that matters be agendized at least 72 hours in advance, so we're constrained by that. Any amendment to a zoning ordinance also requires a minimum of 3 hearings to go before the Planning Commission and then twice before the City Council. That's our own processes combined with planning and zoning laws. It's frustrating, but it can't be helped. Those are the constraints we operate under.
So just trying to clarify from my mind how to move forward. Even if we talk about things that we're not approving, but we have a discussion amongst us as the commission. So they're recorded, and the idea is out there on the table of what changes could be made down the road. At least we have a record of that. But we could say, no, we're not going to act on those things tonight because they weren't noticed. I mean, does that pave the way for us to be able to do this as a commission?
It would be much preferable to have that kind of conversation. The Brown Act allows you to decide and discuss tonight whether or not to place something on a future agenda. That is clearly stated. The Brown Act does not allow you to take action on an item that is not on the agenda. That is also clearly stated. There is a middle ground with respect to how much conversation about an item you can have before you decide to place it on the agenda. My concern is that someone who is keenly interested in the subject of ADUs might assert that the ultimate action was not valid because there was relevant conversation about the details of the ADU ordinance that they had a right to be present and comment on, and because it wasn't agendized, they were not present. So I think the way of prudence is the slower and more inconvenient way of coming back and to discuss these issues in more detail as an agendized item at a future meeting.
Well, I think what you clarified for me in my mind is that the items that we each have, that aren't on the agenda tonight, we can bring up and say, this is something I think we should add to a future meeting to discuss. Is that, so we have a discussion enough for people to understand what the issue is that we're talking about?
We can agendize improvements or clarifications to the ADU ordinance based on what you've already provided us. I think we don't need to have a more protracted conversation which would place any future action at risk.
The only problem with that is you and I are the only ones aware of those. Nobody else has even heard them.
Well,
or
when
seen
we
'em.
bring it back as an agendized item, we could include your email with questions as an attachment, and then they will know them in advance.
But I think that what Pat is saying is that she has to go to the mayor to get approval to agendize it, but,
no, to do a subcommittee.
to do a subcommittee, okay.
So I think moving forward, I think we just need to take the advice of city council, well, city council, yeah, city attorney, and agendize this for a future meeting and continue on with any comments you might have relating to the changes in the ADU law. Did you have specific questions there?
Maybe you can move on to somebody else. I'll look. I don't think I had a lot.
Okay,
there.
Nana, any questions?
No, I think I really have gone through it all, underlined and dotted and done all my stuff on my papers. And I feel that it's very much like what we presented last time, and that we now need to pass it onto city council for them to pass it.
Okay. Let's open up the public meeting. Is there anybody left in the public that wants to speak?
Chair, council members, I see 6 attendees with no raised hand, no public comment.
No further comments. Okay, close the public meeting. Guess we bring it back for your thoughts, Marcia.
I think we should,
Microphone, please.
sorry, wrong microphone. I think we should adopt the resolution recommending city council to adopt the proposed ordinance amendments to chapter 19.79. I think we should do it tonight.
Thank you. Vice Chair Johnson.
Yes, I'm in agreement with that. I think we want to, at the end of the day, we are beholden to state law here. So I think that we should do what we can to make sure that our code is up to date and reflects the state law. So I agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Storr.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that we should, I don't have any issues with what the changes that have been proposed tonight. The only thing I get concerned about quite a bit is, they're talking about a 0 front setback. And if the building height is already 25 feet, if somebody wants to propose a 800 square foot ADU that won't fit within the front, the zone front setback, they could put a 25-foot ADU right at 0 boundary. And
Yeah, but they have to be within a half a mile of a transit,
which
which is the
is
ferry.
a lot of this end of Belvedere. The lagoon, can you imagine Peninsula Road with that sort of?
Well, it
around it?
also says that the only way they can go in, if I'm correct, if the only way they can go into the front setback is if they can't create at least an 800 square foot
Right.
ADU with a 4-foot side and rear setback.
Right.
So, yeah, could it happen? Maybe, yeah, probably could, yeah, should, no, but, it's, something that's in the state law. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing. We can't just say we don't like that.
Yeah. And I understand. I think, do we have to also request for a continuation on this to look at the other language in here for a future meeting?
The motion is to pass
It
the,
hasn't been a motion yet, has it?
well, no, but you're going to give your thoughts.
I am
what
giving
we're
my thoughts.
doing- But what we're doing here tonight is ultimately, we're going to get to the motion. And then once we do the motion, we can ask for an agendized item.
Okay,
Is that correct?
okay. Yeah, thank you.
Nana?
As I said, I believe we should give this to city council as is presented to us tonight.
I concur. May I have a motion, please?
I move to adopt a resolution recommending city council adopt proposed ordinance amendments to chapter 19.79 accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units in conformance with the new state laws, AB 2221 and SB 897.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Lasky. Commissioner Stower,
Yes.
Commissioner Hart,
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
and Chair Carapiet.
Yes. And can we agendize at a future meeting? Discussion relating around
I got it.
ADUs?
Yep.
And JADUs?
Yes. Yeah.
What sort of recommendations we might make?
Well, I think Ann can tell us.
Yeah.
I just sent an email to the city attorney advising her that this is going to be coming up, and we'll put our heads together.
Thank you. Okay, so I believe that concludes our meeting, except that For those who are left, we are bidding goodbye to our Director of Building and Planning, Irene Borba. And I would just like to say that it's been a pleasure working with you. I've learned a lot, and we've had many tears and many laughs. So I wish you the very best in your new position. We will miss you greatly, and we appreciate everything that you've done for this planning commission and for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Carapet and members of the commission. I appreciate that very much. Again, I have had a great time here working for the community for the past 9.5 years. I very much appreciate the time that I have put in here with the community, with the commission, with the staff, with the members of the public. It has been actually a great honor to be able to be here. I have learned a lot, and I hope to bring on what I have learned into my new position with the town of Yountville as their planning and building director. Again, I really cherish the time that I've spent here and with all of the community and with all of the commissioners, and appreciate hopefully all the friendships that I have acquired through my times here. Thank you.
So, and I would like to open it up to anyone who would like to
Yes,
make a comment.
I have a little something for Irene. I have spent a lot of time with Irene in the past, and we also had a very good time together. But I thought this was really appropriate to give her a tree, a little tree.
A hedge?
That she can put in her garden. And I think there are so many unique tree issues and perspectives here, and I hope you can use them in your future. This will be to remember us, and as it grows, you can remember all the tree ordinances, the cut trees, the trimmed trees, the various trees that we've had issues with here. But I will really miss you. We had a great time together, and I really enjoyed working with you also.
Thank you, Marcia.
I would like to apologize for all the silly questions I have come up with for you, where you just have kind of, where is she coming from now? But I've appreciated very, very much your always positive response to anything, and always turn it around so one can understand it and go forward, which has been to me, the most perfect thing, that you always have been able to go forward with everything that has been thrown at us and by us and so on. And as I've said, I hope you will soon have time with your grandchildren.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I came on the planning commission, you were here, and I was pretty green. You were very patient in teaching me a lot of my questions. There was answers already there in the code, and you direct me to it. So I was very grateful. And you also sent me off to training, commissioner training, which was an eye opener to find out that nobody else gives variances in the rest of the state. So I know it was very good training, I thought, and I hope that continues for new commissioners. But good luck in the new job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Unflappable quality, and we've had some, big issues. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.